Good. Just to let you know, I'm having problems with my iPad. Um,
Okay.
it's it's taking an age to charge up every time I charge it, so may need a replacement.
Martin Derbyshire, you're on the line. Would you be able to just make a note of that? Thank you. Welcome,
Thank you.
Councillor Clough. How are you today?
I'm not bad, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
Brilliant.
Lovely. I've changed your name on the screen and you're all text in.
Thank you.
Hello, Councillor Powell. How are you today?
Thank you.
Wonderful. Are you able just to switch on your camera just so that we know that it's working fine? Wonderful. That's great. Thank you. Hello, Councillor Huckabee. Can you hear me? How are you, Councillor Huckabee? Can you hear me? Thank you, Chair. The feed is now live. You're welcome to start.
Welcome, councillors, to this meeting of council. This is a public meeting being streamed live to you to YouTube and via the council's website. The meeting is also being recorded for the purposes of the minutes. I have been advised that the live stream is now up and running. If for any reason the public can no longer hear or see the meeting over the live stream, we will adjourn until the connection has been re-established. Can I ask the Governance Manager to explain the procedure for the meeting and to confirm the members and officers present?
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you, Chair. You just heard a little announcement over there to say that this meeting is being recorded. So this is just a reminder for all remote attendees with us today to keep your cameras turned off for the duration of the meeting and your microphones muted. This is to enable the Chair to be able to see clearly those who are indicating to speak. When you do wish to indicate to speak, please turn on your camera and remain muted until you're invited to speak by the Chair. You can also use the chat function, which will be picked up and communicated to the Chair throughout the meeting. Voting during this meeting will mainly be undertaken by use of Zoom polls, which we've used previously. These will be issued to you at the appropriate time. If you have any issues in using this poll to submit your vote, please make it known to the meeting. And where required, the team will be asked to commence a vote by other methods, such as a show of hands or by a roll call. If you're having any technical issues, please contact me via the chat function or by calling me direct. I believe that everybody should have my phone number and phone numbers of the team members to support you during this meeting. Chair, prior to the meeting, I've checked all those people who are in attendance to ensure they can all see, hear and be heard. So in attendance today, we have remotely councillors Armitage, Barker, Barry, Birkin, Bone, Kevin, Bone, Patricia, Clough, Cooper, Cornwall, Emmons, Angelique Foster, Mark Foster, Fennell, Gomez Rini, Ball, Hancock, Hill, Holmes, Huckabee, Hunt, Hutchinson, Jones, Kenyon, Kerry, Lewis, Liggett, Lilly, Pickering, Powell, Rennick, Reader, Rowe, Rouse, Ruff, Shipman, Stone, Tate, Welton, Whitehead, Windley, Brian Wright and P. Wright. And attendance in the chamber, we have the Leader of the Council, Alex Dale, and Deputy Leader Charlotte Cupit, the Chair of the Council yourself, Councillor Pat Ancliffe, and the Vice Chair, Councillor Martin Thacker MP. Also in the chamber is Councillor Peter Elliott, and supporting the Chair today is the Director of Environment and Enforcement, Karen Hanson. Also in the meeting room, you have officers supporting the meeting. You've got Sarah Sternberg, who is the Monitoring Officer, Jane Dethick, who's the Section 151 Officer, Lee Hicken, who's the Head of Paid Service, and myself, I'm the Governance Manager. I'll be facilitating this meeting, and members of my team are on the line also to support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence? There's no Potts.
Chair, apologies submitted to this meeting are Councillor Mo Potts and Councillor Tracy Reader.
Nikki, I thought you read Tracy's name out at the beginning, but obviously she's put her apologies in. I heard you say Reader once, so that was all.
That's correct, Councillor Barker. Councillor Tracy Reader has submitted her apologies.
Excuse me. Can I just say you forgot to mention my name, Nicola?
My apologies, Councillor Ridgway.
And I also record apologies from Councillor Parkin, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is Councillor Lilly in? Councillor Lilly?
I think somebody just mentioned my name, but I can't hear what the chair is saying. Could you do something with regards to the microphone, the sound? I can't hear it.
Thank you. We know you're there, Councillor Lilly. All apologies have been noted. Thank you. Declarations of interest. Members who have interest should have declared them to the governance manager in advance of the meeting. However, I will ask again, can members please indicate if they have any interest to declare?
Chair, no interests were declared to me before the meeting.
Minutes of the last meeting. Can we approve the minutes of the last meeting as a true and accurate record? May I have a seconder?
Happy to move them, Chair.
Thank you.
Charlotte. Second.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Nikki?
Yes, Chair, I have launched the poll for approving the minutes to approve as a correct record and for the Chair to sign the minutes of Council for the meeting on the 13th of July. I'm just awaiting for the members to issue their votes and then I'll pop it up on the screen for you, Chair.
Nikki, there's a few people on chat saying they're having problems listening and hearing what's going on in the chamber.
Okay.
Is it better if we don't use the microphones? Is that better for you all to hear us?
Well, I can hear you, but Councillor Lewis and Councillor Lilly are having problems hearing.
Chair, in order to make sure that all the members are able to hear, those members that are having problems hearing, would you mind just turning on your cameras for a moment and we will just resolve that. Councillor Lilly, if Councillor Dale was to speak just then, as he did without the microphones, was that easier for you to hear?
Nikki, it's Karen Hanson here. A message to say that it might be better for us not to use the microphones in the council chamber. So we're going to try that. Can you let us know if you can hear me okay?
I can hear you loud and clear. Councillor Lilly, you are having an issue hearing the chair. Is that still the case? I think Councillor Lilly may be having some technical issues. I'll arrange for a technician to give him a call to make sure that that is resolved.
Councillor Lewis, can you hear us okay?
I can hear everybody else, but I can't hear those. I can't hear very well those people in the council chamber.
It's not very good, but it's better from my perspective.
Thank you. We'll speak clearer and louder.
Can't hear that. Can't make out what they're saying.
Councillor Lilly, I'll try and assist by putting up some captions on the screen. So if you'd like to turn up your captioning, I'll get a technician to call you and we'll try to resolve it. Chair, I've issued the poll. We've had voting for, against and abstain for the minutes. So I'm just going to share those results on your screen and you'll see that 100% of members voted for. That's 38 votes for the minutes, which means that that is carried.
Thank you. We'll go now to item 4. On Sunday, it's Chair's announcements, and on Sunday the 30th of August, the Vice Chair of the Council and I greeted walkers at the end of the 5.3 miles walk to the commemorative gay rights pioneer Edward Carpenter, who lived in Millthorpe for over 40 years from the 1890s. Thank you to Councillor Huckabee for joining us on this occasion as the ward member. Well done for all those who participated and raising money for the Derbyshire LGBT Plus Centre in Chesterfield, as well as an awareness of Edward Carpenter. I'd also like to thank colleagues in the absence of North East Derbyshire's Council commemoration. I was pleased to be invited by Oldham Side and Walton Parish Council to attend a socially distanced commemorative for BJ Day at their war memorial on the 15th of August. This ensured the marking of the end of the Second World War and a remembering of those who fought in the Far East. Public participation. I can confirm that no public questions have been submitted, so we shall move on to the next item. Transformation Programme Update, May 2019 to May 2020. Can I now invite Councillor Kenyon to present the Transformation Programme Update Report? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can everybody hear me? The transformation programme was started with the aims of transforming how we go about our business, looking for cost savings, service improvements, and also emissions reductions. The transformation, it's not just about saving money, it's about flexibility and being able to adapt. And this flexibility was recently put through a massive test when COVID hit. I think we can all be proud of how the whole organisation responded. And I would like to thank all our officers for how they've thrown themselves into transformation. And I strongly believe that the culture that we have was a significant contributor to why this council did such a great job for our residents and continues to do that job. I won't cover climate change here as that's in the next report and the two reports overlap. So financially, we have a goal of saving £2 million from 2018 to 2022, and we're on track to achieve that with 69 projects in climbing, and most of those projects will continue delivering savings year on year long into the future. Our digital transformations led to a new website, which is ranked as one of the best in the country. It's been up to number 3, I think, at one point. And over the year, we've also added over 60 new self-service options, allowing residents to report issues 24/7, while at the same time letting our contact centre focus on the less digitally aware. And through that time, our complaints have also fallen. To support agile working, we've invested in a variety of digital technologies, and because of that, we were well placed when COVID hit. And it was a massive test of our IT systems in particular. And while there were niggles, it was a huge testament to how well prepared those systems were. Another key aspect of the transformation programme is developing our staff. And the Leadership Academy, that's part of the programme, has 12 staff working through it now, and there are a further 20 staff enrolled on accredited leadership training programmes. And the Academy also includes a Changemakers programme, to let officers develop ideas for business improvements and efficiency improvements for the council. So going forward, this work will continue, and we'll have a strong focus, especially in the year coming, on focusing on supporting new opportunities that working from home brings. And that will give us huge carbon savings through reduced commuting and office use, give us financial savings, quality of life improvements for employees, and greater flexibility for how residents can access our services. So that'll be a key focus for the next 12 months. Thank you. I don't know, Chair, if we need to, I don't think we need to vote on this. It's just to note the report, isn't it?
Is there a second there?
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to second the motion that we note this report, and also to echo the comments of Councillor Kenyon in thanking staff and members for their engagement with the transformation agenda. It really is heartening to see ideas coming from all sort of tiers of this organisation and feeding into how we can really transform the organisation to be more efficient and effective, and all of the things that Councillor Kenyon said. So I'm very happy to chair, very happy to second this motion, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I speak, Chair?
Sorry. Yes, on more comments. Thank you, Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Am I all right? Am I on?
Yes.
Do I have to wait for a red line or anything? I'm all right. Again, I'd like to thank Councillor Kenyon for that report, and also thank all the officers for the work during the COVID, which ain't gone away yet. I'm sure we know that. and also for all the officers that put together this document, well presented document, I think. And I'll accept, or we accept, that there's some progress has been made and over the last year. But I can't help thinking that I think it's a bit light on how we get the £2 million. And let's just say I'll be monitoring, or we'll be monitoring the identified projects and initiatives with interest going forward. They still seem a bit lacking in detail, I think, them. With regards to digital transformation, again, there's 3 pages of information, all looks impressive, and I accept, or we'd accept that we acknowledge that that's the way forward, how we need to think, but we've got to be careful that we don't disenfranchise some sections of our community when we're doing that, like closing area housing offices and stuff like that. But I'd also say the report's also a bit light on the effects of COVID-19 and how we're going to tackle that going forward, because there's still a big issue with that, how much it's costing us and everything else like that. And finally, I noticed on page 3 there's a reference to Vision Derbyshire, and which I believe, and I've only just sort of got involved with this, is that it's a submission from all the councils in Derbyshire to work together more collaboratively to try and keep the 2 tiers of local government. However, I've also noticed this weekend that there's a paper going to cabinet at the county council, at full council at the county council on Wednesday, which, as I quote, will mandate officers within the council to prepare an alternative route for devolution and the development of a case for a single unitary for Derbyshire. This would ultimately result in getting rid of districts and borough councils like ours. And I think I would, and the people of Derbyshire, North East Derbyshire, would like to know, where does Councillor Dale loyalties lie? Will he, when it push comes to shove, vote to abolish a council that he's leader of, or will he fight against the unitary proposal and defend the existence of this council? And I think it's important. He's just said how he's working to be more efficient, more this and that, but ultimately it could be on a lead authority that's trying to get rid of that very same council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Any further comments?
Happy to respond to
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Councillor Barker, for those questions. It's very kind of you to continue to monitor and observe the deficit that you left this administration with following your previous administration. With regards to Vision Derbyshire, we've been absolutely clear that we are committed to Vision Derbyshire and achieving that goal. That's the best way I can see of sustaining a future for this organisation. If we don't engage seriously in Vision Derbyshire and put that forward as a model, there are many forces that we clearly can't control. One is how the government wishes to take forward devolution and local government reform, and the other is what councils around us will do. And we know that Derby City has already put forward a proposal to split the county, and therefore I think it is necessary that the county council puts forward Vision Derbyshire, but also considers alternative options. And it's necessary for this council to do the same as well, which we will be doing.
Any further comments? Councillor Kenyon, right to reply.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, the concerns about achieving the 2 million, I'm very comfortable, because we're this year we've got almost £500,000 from the line-by-line budget review, which is a whole host of small transformations essentially, and the cumulative effect, we should be well past the 2 million. I share your concern about disenfranchising people who aren't using digital channels, but the best way we can do that is to free up time, for example, in the contact centre, by making sure that people who are willing to use digital channels can do so. So I share your concern and will keep an eye on that myself as well, obviously. Re COVID-19, I mean, that affects every part of the council. It's not particularly just for transformation or climate change we'll come on to. But what I would say is one of the best things we could do to address that is continue developing the ability to work remotely in a whole variety of ways, and working from home is part of that. That it applies for residents not having to come into the council, site visits that planning committees might make. There's a whole host of digital ways of addressing that, which is what the transformation programme will be looking at. Thank you.
Councillor Lewis, did you wish to say something?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to reassure Councillor Barker that the County Council is fully committed to the Vision Derbyshire piece of work, and I'm very pleased that he and his group are bringing themselves up to speed on the purpose and reasoning behind Vision Derbyshire. But just to sort of reiterate what Councillor Dale has also just said, it is important that we have a backup plan in the back pocket just in case that is not acceptable. And also as a key defence, should Derby City try to expand its borders and take up potentially up to half of the county with it. So whatever happens there, that means then that whatever is in existence now will be swept away, even here in the north of the county. So it is important that we have a backup plan for that reason. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll now move to the vote. Can Governance Manager please lead us in the vote?
Yes, of course, Chair. I just wanted to let you know before I issue the vote that two members have joined us since the meeting started. Councillor Dayton and Councillor Morley are now in the meeting room. And just a reminder for members, if you could possibly keep your cameras off when you're not indicating you wish to speak. This does help the chairman to identify who wishes to speak. Chair, I'm just issuing the poll for you now.
Thank you.
Can I just point out that those in the chamber don't get the poll? How do we vote?
Chair, if you would like to lead a vote by hands in the chamber.
I think that's not appropriate, if I may, Chair, because then everyone else has got the ability to ballot secretly and ours isn't. I don't think that's an appropriate way of dealing with it.
Chair, you have a number of options for voting. I can continue to issue polls for the members voting remotely, or if you would like for us to, we can commence voting by roll call or by a show of hands.
May I speak? Councillor Angelique Foster.
Councillor Foster.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted, I'm not sure if it's a point of order, but these reports usually don't require a secret vote. The fact that we're voting by way of poll is purely due to the technicalities of having meetings via Zoom. But I don't quite understand why we would require a private secret vote on a report, which would normally be done by show of hands in the chamber. Could we have confirmation?
Yeah, so that's not a point of order. That's implying that I'm just referring to it as a secret vote. You can't tell me, Councillor Foster, who else has voted in what way. Neither can we. But you would know how we vote on anything, not just on this. It's the principle of the matter.
My apologies. The question was to the officer. I just wanted clarification on how we were going to proceed as of now for those votes.
Chairman, may I come in? Sarah Sternberg, Monitoring Officer. I think the Governance Manager has outlined what you can do. You can either carry on with the poll and do a semi-secret vote in the chamber so that it's known to the chairman but not to others, or you can go to a full poll on screen where we'd have to look at every single person's vote.
can't vote my vote by email. So can anyone in this chamber?
Well, Chair, I'm happy
Sorry.
to just put my hand up and say that I'm happy to vote for this recommendation.
Right.
It's your decision as chair.
Do you wish to?
It's your decision.
No.
But I feel that it's not the principle of this transformation programme, Chair. It's the principle of it for other votes as well.
So
Yeah.
the situation is you can either have the existing polls on the screen, or you can go to a hands-off approach that we've done in previous meetings and go through each member.
I think it's easy to do it on screen as the poll, but perhaps we could email them. No.
Yeah. Can you do that
Do you want to do the hands up?
on the screen, and we'll do ours by email then.
Okay, Sarah, Nikki, the chair would like to do the old way of voting, please, with the hands up on the screens, please. Thank you.
Okay. Chair, on that basis, then, if you would like a show of hands vote for the transformation programme item, I will end the polling, and we will not reissue that poll. And then if you would like to lead from the chamber a show of hands, we can request that all members turn on their cameras at this point, and you can lead the vote, and we will do a count for you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Yes, Nikki, carry on.
Chair, if I may, it's just checking that all members are happy to turn on their cameras to do this, as we won't be able to see your vote if your camera isn't on. I'm just sending a few prompts to members to ask them to start their videos. Chair, I have all the videos that should now be on.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's for?
Chair, I can count 33 votes that are clearly shown as for.
2 votes in the council chamber.
Those against?
I can see 1 vote clearly marked against on this vote.
Any abstentions?
I can see 2 abstentions, Chair.
Thank you.
So that vote is carried, Chair.
Thank you. Item 7, climate change update. Can I now invite Councillor Kenyon to present the climate change update report?
Well, after the last excitement, I'm afraid to do so now. So thank you, Chair. Yes, there's a lot of detail in the attached report, but again, in summary, it represents a lot of hard work by officers right across the council and the commitment of this council to reducing our impact on our environment. I'll just mention some key points. Adapting to COVID has reduced our emissions by over 100 tonnes this year. Obviously, digital transformation is about supporting that so that we can keep those gains for future years, or as many of them as possible. We've got new boilers in Mill Lane, that's saving 30 tonnes a year in emissions, or would if we were not in a COVID situation anyway. We've completed the first phase of the Eckington Pool efficiency work. That's a new insulated roof. That'll save estimated another 30 tonnes. And there are a myriad of smaller projects such as battery chainsaws. We've reduced paper use by 79%, and things like fitting LED lighting in communal areas of our flats. We've also continued investing in our council housing, in particular with external wall insulation and roof insulation on some of the most inefficient housing stock that we've got. We've helped hundreds of residents access funding to improve their homes' efficiency. And in the wider community, North East Derbyshire is now achieving a recycling rate of 47%. That compares to a national average of 43.5%. So an example of what our residents are doing. So for the next 12 months, just a quick flavour, it's vital that we achieve the biggest reductions for the resources that we have available. So you'll hear me refer a lot to fabric first. This is the principle of prioritising passive improvements that will reduce energy consumption for all the remaining decades the building will be in use. And I know it sounds mundane, but the reality is it's many times more effective than, I don't know, electric bin lorries or something sexy like that. So we'll continue to invest in our facilities. We've got plans for a new leisure centre in Clay Cross. We've got further efficiency improvements planned at Eckington and Dronfield leisure centres, and also our other buildings are all undergoing a review at the moment to look for other opportunities. We're finding we've got facilities that don't even have cavity wall insulation at the moment, which is amazing to me in 2020. We're also investigating several district heating solutions, including one from old coal mines, and that would be really nice because it would complete the reformation of our dirty sort of coal energy past through to a clean geothermal supply. That would be particularly interesting. We'll continue to invest our own funds in improving council housing, again focusing on insulation and energy efficiency. And we've also just applied for this £2.3 million of grant funding to improve insulation on council housing. And finally, just to say, of course, it's not just North East. We all need to work together. Resident, business, sorry? Time, yeah. Finally, we just need to work together. It's residents, businesses. I can't hear what's being said. Is that time? I will propose that we accept the report.
Thank you, Councillor Kenyon. Is there a seconder?
Yeah,
Councillor Dale?
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second and to echo Councillor Kenyon's words, and also to thank members and staff for their engagement with this agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did you wish to say something, Councillor Ray?
Can I comment, Chair? I don't know if you can see me.
Yes. Yes, Councillor Barker.
Thank you. Again, I welcome this report and thanks Councillor Kenyon for this. And again, I'd thank the officers and all the work that's gone into it. I think it's fair to say all them figures are pointing in the right direction, and it's looking good. I'm saying thing, we shouldn't be complacent, I don't think, because I think we need to recognise some of these figures are based on the increase in home working and less travel and all this sort of stuff. And again, in relation to that, I'd just like reassurances that the council's looking at improving its own working policy and take into account the new normal, as they call it. I don't know why I'm doing that. Nobody can see me, can they? And the possible increase in home working going forward, because let's not forget that while our energy consumptions might be going down, the people are staying at home and they've got to use their own. So there's issues around that, isn't there? And I'd also like to comment on the work that Ricknold's doing, and I'd like to take a bit of personal credit for that, and obviously the past administration, because that external wall insulation, while it's good for reducing carbon emissions, it also saves people, tenants, customers, whatever we like to call them, a lot of money, because obviously we've had experience of that in Wingfield, and it's a really positive thing. So the more we can roll that out, the better for everybody concerned. So really, it's keep up the work on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Gomez-Reilly.
Sorry, I'm not wishing to speak.
Councillor Ali. Caroline. Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Kenyon, for the report. What I would like to see this council do more of is actually speak to the public about these climate change initiatives that we're trying to bring in, because I think it's all well and good as the councils talking to each other and coming up with things that we feel the public want or are going to be able to do, but ultimately it's the public we need to get on side. They need to be buying into the council's climate change plan. And whilst an electric, what do you call it, a litter machine might not necessarily be the most efficient use of resources, it's certainly something that we need to do, because one of the biggest problems with climate change is getting emissions out of the system. That will be the hardest, 5% of carbon emissions that this council will have to deal with. So we need to be getting people buying into the plan and not just talking down to people and expecting them to buy in. So I would like to see Councillor Kenyon talk to the public more, get some experts' opinions in from the public, businesses that we've got around us, and use that to develop the plan into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kenyon, do you wish to use your right to reply?
Yes, thank you. First, to Councillor Barker, I completely agree. We can't be complacent, and some of the officers will tell you I've been asking them some very hard questions about what our targets should be going forwards, because it's a very difficult task that the entire planet faces, really, and we all have to play our part. And I also agree it's very nice that sometimes doing this work is a win-win scenario for residents, and that's it's one of the nicer things about working on climate change. For Councillor Shipman, yes, I completely agree. The public needs to be heavily involved in this. I think it was a few council meetings ago, there was a question about a citizens' assembly, and that would be one way of doing that, and the county council are taking the lead on that. But I do think we have to be very careful about what our priorities are, because it really is boring, mundane stuff that will give us the biggest wins. And we only have a finite amount of money to play with. We can't whack the precept up to some huge amount to fund things that will tackle that last 5% when we haven't tackled the first 95%. So it's a prioritization. I take your point that we need to do all of those things at some point. And it's just down to choosing the priorities to be as effective as they can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for Councillor Kenyon. We were promised about 9 months ago a climate change pack which would be distributed to parish councils, etc. I've not seen that yet. I've been asked questions about that. Can you tell me where we are with actually getting that out into the parishes?
Absolutely, yes. That was going to be in the last 10 seconds, where I'm not sure if I actually ran out of time or if it was a warning that I got a 1 minute warning. I couldn't tell, but the pack was circulated 3 months ago now. It was also circulated to every parish in Derbyshire, as it turns out, because I was part of a team of, it was a climate conference, and I sent it to the facilitators there, so it's gone very widely. I'll check why you haven't received it, or maybe it would have been sent to your clerk actually. And it is a key thing that we've got to work together on, and it's at parish and town level. If your clerk hasn't received that pack, then she should do. But I would encourage every one of you, you're probably nearly all parish councillors, please be raising these things at your own parish councils, because at the very local level, you've got things you can do directly, but you've also got things that you can encourage your residents to do. For example, communicating about this insulation scheme might be a thing of the moment to get into your newsletters. And also, I'm sure nearly everybody here will be involved in other organisations of various kinds. And again, take the opportunities to nudge any organisation you're part of, just nudge them on climate change and just keep on essentially nagging people, I suppose, in a nice way about it. So, thank you.
Thank you. We will now move to the vote.
I want to
speak. Sorry? Oh, sorry, Councillor Cornwell.
Thank you. Yeah, now I just wanted to say that yes, it was distributed to parish councillors, and there was some really good stuff in there, and I really appreciated it being sent to me. There were some things that I wanted to suggest to changes, and I sent them to the relevant people. But on the whole, there was a really good starting point. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the vote. Can the governance manager please lead us in the vote?
Thank you, Chair. Is it your wish that I do this by a show of hands?
Yes.
On that basis, then, may I ask for all members to turn on your cameras? And when the chairman will lead the vote, just say for, against, abstain. I'm asking you to raise your hands, and if you could put it clearly near to your face like this, then we'll be able to see on your screens. Chair, I'm just going to send a few prompts to members to ask them to start videos. And when all are on, I'll let you know to lead the vote. Chair, all of the member videos are now on if you would like to lead the vote for, against, abstain.
We'll now take the vote then for.
That's 44, Chair.
2 votes for in the council chamber.
Those against?
Chair, there are no votes against online.
Any abstentions?
There is one member indicating they wish to abstain from this vote.
Thank you.
Chair, with the 44 votes for, that would be carried.
Thank you. Can I confirm that we have 3 questions submitted under procedure 9.2? The first question is from Councillor Nigel Barker, directed to Councillor Alex Dale, leader of the council. Thank you, Councillor Barker.
All right, thank you. All right. I just before I ask my question, I'd just like to make the point, and I know I've had an email today, Alex, from you regarding the COVID, the Viper meetings, but I did feel that that we did feel as though we're going back to this adversarial sort of politics, hence all these questions and motions to today's meeting. I did request I've sent a couple of emails sort of trying to make some sort of dialogue, but I'll accept that you've made the effort today, so well done on that, and re-establishing the Viper meeting. Just for my question, as it's written there, like, can you update us on how the COVID crisis impacted on the financial position of the council and Ricknells, especially with reference to the capital programme? Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Barker, for the question. Just in relation to Viper meetings and the COVID sort of issue per se, I'm sorry if you've contacted me and I haven't responded. I am aware you wrote to me about the area housing offices. I'm not aware of any other emails, so I apologise if that's been missed. On the wider point, though, obviously, August has been a period of recess for most councillors. Most people have been away. It was always our intention to re-engage with the Viper meetings, and particularly now seems like an appropriate time with all the preparations for winter planning and winter resilience. So we will proceed with that meeting soon, and hopefully we can continue to meet on that basis. I have no desire to have any sort of adversarial politics on that issue at all. In relation to the question, the pandemic is inevitably having a detrimental impact on the current year's budget and cash flow, with the main concern obviously being the lost income from fees and charges. It's also worth reiterating that the COVID crisis and its impact on the council is ongoing, and so the information I'm going to provide now is obviously only deals with what we know at this moment in time. The council has received grant from government totaling 1.2 million, which I'm sure you will agree is hugely welcome. In addition, the government's income compensation scheme for lost fees and charges will help considerably towards covering the forecast income losses. We haven't yet got the precise detail of that scheme, but officers suggest that it's likely to be in the region of £800,000. Income losses of 1.7 million are currently predicted, mainly because of the closure of our leisure centres and the suspension of other services such as MOT testing during lockdown. And whilst reopening will allow us to begin to generate income again, social distancing restrictions will limit capacity considerably, so income is not expected to return to pre-lockdown levels for some time yet. At the start of the national lockdown, budget controls were quickly put in place, as you're aware from the previous Viper meetings, to limit expenditure to essential items only during this time, including pausing of the capital programmes. This was largely to protect the cash flow position, including during the period of lockdown, when only limited works could be carried out due to the national restrictions in place. Both programmes were unpaused as soon as practicable, with work on the housing capital programme commencing once again in May. Since May, Ricknell Homes have really ramped up on the external major works programmes and have ensured that all in-house teams are being fully utilised wherever possible. Measures have been put in place to ensure that the organisation is compliant with the new construction health and safety guidance to ensure that staff can work safely and that customers are protected. It's anticipated that the majority of the housing and capital programme will be delivered during the financial year. Any exceptions to this will be reported in the half-year budget review and the programme reprofiled at that time. The cash flow position has remained relatively static throughout this period as a result of these measures and deferred payments to the government for business rates. Better than forecast collection rates for council tax, business rates and rents have also assisted. So at the end of August, council tax was down by just 1.5% on last year, and business rates were down by just 4%, both much higher than our initial forecasts had suggested. Rental income is just 1.4% lower than the same period last year and was actually higher than the target during lockdown as a result of some of the proactive welfare calls that we made to tenants. The council and Ricknell Homes will continue to support people and help and support anyone in financial difficulty following the government guidance in relation to arrears action. We are, however, very aware that this is an evolving position that can change quickly. The end of the furlough scheme next month is likely to have an impact, so we will continue to closely monitor this position over the coming months. On a positive note, planning fees and industrial unit rents have remained at pre-pandemic levels throughout. As we now start to enter the recovery phase, and many of our services can begin to operate in some capacity again, our main priority is to provide, as far as possible, some stability within the budget for the rest of this financial year. And to facilitate this, the revised budget process is already underway at Council. Ricknold Homes' financial position is strong, enabling full housing services to be provided to customers, with budgets currently being reviewed to ensure the post-COVID business recovery plan can be delivered. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Barker, do you have a supplementary question you'd like to ask?
No, thanks, Councillor Dale. That's very comprehensive. Like I fully expected that, you know, the revenue budgets are going to be very strained, I'd imagine, because, like you say, the income stopped and everything else. It was more around the capital programme, and I accept, I've seen in the Cabinet papers that you're cautiously releasing restrictions on the Cabinet, and I was just trying to get some reassurances that things are back on track, really, a little bit, that we're starting to spend some of that capital budget. I understand the revenue budgets, nobody knows really what how we going forward. We still don't. That's my phone gone off. Where we're at, and with that in mind, and I know I'm being parochial at this bit, but I'd just like some reassurances and the people in North Wingfield about the development of Whiteley's Avenue and how long, because that's been paused for a while now, and people are asking me what's happening basically with that, and when will that be in the pipeline, and have you got a timeline for that? Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Barker, for the supplementary. The situation, you're right, obviously, due to cash flow issues, the council did have to be cautious with the capital budget, but I do accept the point, and I would agree that actually fundamental to our recovery is the fact that the council does spend that capital budget, because that is helpful to the local economy. With regard to Whiteley's Avenue, we're as keen as you are to see some progress on that. The delivery options for the scheme are being considered by the council, and we're hoping to consult with local residents in October, or preparations are being made on that basis, in line with the COVID-19 restrictions. And following the outcome of both items, a revised delivery programme will be developed for the project, with a view to being on site in late spring of next year. So I appreciate it's disappointing that we've had that pause with that project, but we are very much hoping to get started and get going as soon as we possibly can. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
The second, Councillor Alex Dale, Leader of the Council. Councillor Barry.
Sorry, Chair, you disappeared altogether. I couldn't hear anything that came out of the council chamber. I assume you're asking for my question, so I'll put it forward. Before I actually put the question to the leader, I'd like to say that whilst we're aware that a post was placed on Facebook stating that there'd be a 2-minute silence at 11 o'clock on the day of VJ Day, and a lone piper did play a lament on Twitter. This, as far as we're concerned, is very disappointing, given that we hold a bronze and silver award given to us by the supporters of the armed forces, and the fact that the council has 2 civic cadets. So can the leader summarise what the district did to commemorate VJ Day?
Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Barry, for your question. As you may be aware, the council had originally intended to host at least one community event to commemorate VJ Day, in addition to the 2 we had planned in Claycross and Killamarsh earlier in the year for VE Day. When the National VE Day programme of events was cancelled by the Queen's Pageant Master due to COVID-19, we had hoped to reschedule these events to the 15th of August. In the weeks preceding the 15th of August, the national guidance on COVID-19 was that large-scale outdoors gatherings should be avoided wherever possible. The Queen's Pageant Master had also advised against holding large events for VJ Day, and instead only suggested or advised 3 limited activities, which namely were pipers at 5:47 a.m, buglers at 11 a.m or 8:18 p.m, and town criers at 11:05 a.m. Due to the continued uncertainty surrounding COVID-19 and the challenges in forward planning such an event, as well as the continued risk to public health, particularly for those in vulnerable categories, officers took the decision not to host a community event. The 3 activities suggested by the Queen's Pageant Master were also explored by officers, but for various reasons were not considered practicable. The authority did post its support for the VJ Day commemorations, and as the Chair has said, by a very kind invitation of Holly Moorside and Walton Parish Council, the Chair did attend a commemorative event there. I'm sure you will, like me, be disappointed that the Council did not host an event itself to commemorate VJ Day, and I am very sorry that that is the case. I recognise that this is a really historic, important commemoration, and I wholeheartedly apologise if you or anyone else feel that the Council didn't do enough to recognise it as such. But what I would say is that should the COVID restrictions allow, next year it is our intention to host a 1940s themed festival events and activities to ensure that both VE Day and VJ Day and the huge sacrifices of our armed forces can be commemorated in the way that they deserve to have been this year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Barry, have you got a supplementary question you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I think I am still very disappointed, Councillor Dale, over the fact that, you know, there were some areas and some boroughs and some districts that did continue to do some form of commemoration for this important and historic day. You know, the people, the soldiers that were out there were already known as the forgotten warriors. You know, the least we could have done as a district council was to acknowledge them. Some of those people that lost their lives supporting us and giving us a better world were from our district. So I am really disappointed in the fact that North East Derbyshire couldn't see themselves put on some form of event to commemorate them. And I'd like to see and ask the council, the leader again, as to why the chair and vice chair were not supported by the armed officers champion in putting something together. You know, we've just got these awards and we've done nothing. So can the leader tell me why they didn't feel it important enough to do something about these forgotten warriors? Just to say we're disappointed isn't enough, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Barry, you'll appreciate it was around the time that planning for this event would have been taking place was around the time that I took over as leader of the council, and it's by no means an excuse, but there was a lot going on, and I'm afraid I wasn't aware that a decision had been taken to not proceed with an event. Had I been aware, had it been brought to my attention, I certainly would have encouraged a very small commemorative event in line with the COVID-19 restrictions. All I can do is recognise what you're saying and the fact that this event is extremely important to many people across our district, particularly those who were affected by the war directly. And I can very much pledge and commit that subject to the COVID-19 regulations next year, we very much hope to run a proper event and give those 2 days the commemoration and the recognition that they deserve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. We only have 5 minutes left for the last question. And the third question is from Councillor Maggie Jones, directed to Councillor Alex Dale, leader of the council. Councillor Jones.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you. Can we have your question, Councillor Jones, Tom, Councillor Dale?
Food drop-offs, medical drop-offs have ceased just at a point where more people are out of work and are able to feed themselves and their families. The food parcels and delivery of medicine that the council put together helped a great many people. And to stop it now, when numbers of COVID-19 cases are on the rise in this area, seems illogical. Can the leader enlighten us to why this has happened and the reasoning behind it, please?
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Jones, for your question. I want to start by clarifying that during the lockdown period and the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been two separate schemes to provide food and other essential items for vulnerable residents. Firstly, as you'll know, the government introduced a shielding scheme for the clinically extremely vulnerable. This included the provision of food boxes, which were provided by central government when the assistance of Derbyshire County Council, North East Derbyshire District Council and Ricknold Homes were required. This service ceased on the 31st of July following a decision by central government that the shielding scheme was no longer required due to the reduction in cases. All those who were on the government shielded list received information to support them with the transition, and this included details of slots for home deliveries with local supermarkets. This list is being maintained so that it's up to date should it be required again at any point in the future. In addition to the government shielded scheme, as you all know, the council and Ricknold Homes have worked together to ensure that all residents can urgently access support when needed. Up to last week, the council had received a total of 6,772 contacts for support during the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been reducing slowly, and we've received only one such request since the 30th of July. Specifically, with regard to food deliveries, the council has undertaken 37 food shops for those with specific food requirements due to medical conditions, and made a total of 61 food box deliveries throughout the lockdown period. In addition, Ricknold Homes provided around 11 food boxes per week during the peak time in April, with a steady decline in requests seen after then. Only 2 boxes were requested in July. Support was also provided to local food banks with regular food collections made by Ricknold Homes to ensure the ongoing supply of essential items were available. I want to be absolutely clear with you, Councillor Jones, that there has been no decision to cease this support, nor the emergency delivery of food parcels from the council and Ricknold. It is simply the case that demand has significantly reduced, and we have not received any further requests for food parcels in recent weeks. I can assure you that any new request that would come in from a vulnerable person, we would, working with partners, of course, support those people in any way that we can, and that will remain the case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Jones, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, it's good to hear that, but I'm so concerned that things are going to escalate. We're not at the bottom of this. We're actually going to be going up. More people are going to have problems. We've already got people on the furlough scheme that's going to end in October. That's going to put a lot of people in real financial difficulties, especially if firms they're employed by are unable to keep them on just because they're no longer viable. The food drops in themselves were more than just about delivering food. It was also medication, and it was also the opportunity to offer support to people who are often frightened and lonely. And I'd like that to continue. I think that we were doing a really good job, and maybe it's some of it's to do with central government, but we have some responsibility for the people in our area. And I'd like us to continue to give them the support that they deserve. Given the possibility of a second wave of COVID-19, will the leader consider reinstating the invaluable food drop-offs if it's at all possible? Thank you.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, for the supplementary question. As I said earlier in the exchange with Councillor Barker, we are intending to have a VIPER meeting shortly, which is considering that very issue of the potential of a second wave. And I can absolutely assure you that if we do end up in a similar challenging situation as we found ourselves in earlier this year, we stand very much ready to support our residents in any way that we possibly can. And I'm sure that obviously, depending on the circumstances, we can very much consider the issue of food parcels and food deliveries, emergency food deliveries, if necessary. What I would say, though, is that we do have to try and balance continuing our day-to-day services with emergency support. And judging by what the national restrictions suggest we can and can't do at the time, and also what the R rate is and how many cases there are. We do need to sort of balance that emergency support to residents, which is absolutely fundamental, and I don't disagree with you, with also continuing to provide the day-to-day services that our residents rightly expect from us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. That concludes today's questions. We will now move on to the next item of the agenda. In accordance with the Council Procedure Rule 10, I can confirm that we have 4 motions to consider. I now invite Councillor David Hancock to move motion A on the agenda. Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Chair. The motion is a simple one. I'm not going to read through it, but it's a recurring issue that we have with all of our planning, well, the vast majority of our planning applications. The highways, the responses that we get from highways as a statutory consultee are very often non-committal. We had an incident at Shirland a few weeks ago with Hallfield Gate Lane, which anyone who's ever driven down there once knows that that's not a viable point for a junction. According to highways, no issue. We've got an appeal hearing next week for Wingerworth, where again they say no issue, yet several years ago they actually declined for a turning at the same point. Last year we had the very embarrassing, or for Derbyshire County Council anyway, not for us, embarrassing situation where they approved the entry to a traveller site, then had to revoke it because of course it was directly opposite a junction to a major development. So the proposal is that we actually contact them. As a planning authority, our decisions are based on the quality of information that we're provided with, and quite clearly that quality is lacking. So the motion is as stands that the council actually approaches them and said, we need better from them. We can't do a legitimate job, and we're bearing the brunt for their poor reports. I think it's also worth pointing out that 2 years ago I was actually at the inspector's hearing for the local plan, and the representative from DCC Highways actually confessed that they don't take into account the cumulative impact, which they're actually required to do under the National Planning Policy Framework. So again, we've already got admissions from them. I know colleagues have actually been at meetings where they've said exactly the same thing. So we need to insist that the data that we're given is actually accurate, and we're making our decisions based on that.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you.
Yes, if I could say a few words. Basically, I totally agree with Councillor Hancock. I mean, I've recently just gone on planning committee, and the level of reports from DCC, whether intentional or not, they don't do what is required for a planning committee to look at and think, is this going to be a good development? Oh, the highways issue is fine. I can remember it might have been a year and a half ago. Councillor Lewis, I believe, held an event in Wingerworth about the A61, and one of the planning engineers actually at the time admitted that they are reluctant to submit comments that are negative towards a development because they get overturned in appeal. Well, if we've got a statutory consultee who's essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, is scared to put the truth onto a bit of paper, then what sort of planning system have we actually got? We need proper reports. We need them to be accurate. We need them to say as it is. We need highways reports that have been done recently to when the development's been put in. I mean, the one that Councillor Hancock referred to, is it Hallfield Lane in Shirland? And there's many councillors, including Councillor Cooper, who was at that debate. And that highways report that we were being asked to make a decision on was, I think it was 3 years out of date. Well, if that's the level of information we're being gifted, then it's making the planning committee's job now and impossible to make an accurate decision. So I fully support what Councillor Hancock's saying, and I think we seriously need to start speaking up to the developers, speaking up to the consultants to make sure the information is accurate and that we aren't just passing things on a whim. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shipman. Are there any other Sorry.
Can I speak, Chair? I don't know if you can see me. Are you?
Sorry,
Councillor Barker.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Barker. Councillor Barker.
I've also been wanting to say something and all today.
Who's that, Barky? Who is it? Is it me? I'd just like to, I'm going to move an amendment, and so I want to try and get in first, so that we're not going over ground twice, like really. I think from our group, there's a lot of sympathy with this motion. We can understand where it's coming from, and I think anybody that sat on planning committee regularly genuinely get frustrated with the highway comments, you know, or no comments when it's obviously an emotive issue. But I also know that the officers at the county council are working under, they've got to abide by government policies and all that sort of stuff. And they obviously they could, it's a desktop exercise a lot of time. The volume of traffic, the width of roads, all that sort of stuff, and it's either that's suitable or it's not, which doesn't reflect well at a planning committee. So I'd like, instead of the council resolves, the last one is just amend that and actually refer this to a scrutiny committee, where I think there's arguments both sides, and I think the scrutiny committee can actually look at what the regulations are, what the highways officers have to work towards. But I also think there's a communications issue about how those decisions are relayed back. If you're in a planning meeting and there's a lot of people there that are objecting to it and know there's a lot of traffic and all it says is no comment, that doesn't reflect well on any council, to be honest, whether it's us or the county. And I just wondered if possibly a community scrutiny committee can actually get some highways officers in to look at their sort of roles and responsibilities, and also express our concerns about how they communicate their decisions. So my amendment, and I don't know if you got it, Nikki, did you get it? I did send it just to try and help, only 10 minutes before the meeting, like, but
Yeah, I've just put that. I can pop that on the screen for members if you wish.
it just means that everybody, yeah, go on then. It says, I don't know if I spelled too right.
Is that correct as you'd like it, Councillor Barker?
It's just the last bit. Oh, you've crossed us there. Revert to for consideration. Oh, that'll do. Yeah, I did put other bits in, but I've just said what those considerations are. So I don't need to word them, do I? It's just to refer it to scrutiny committee. Okay. You've amended my amendment then, Nikki.
Apologies, I did that live in the meeting. I can look at your proper amendment if you'd like, Councillor.
It's all right. It's all right. That'll do. Thank you.
Councillor Brian Wright.
Thank you, Chair. All it is really, it's just for clarification and guidance. Due to me dual role, I'm elected member of County Council and also a member of the County Council Planning. So does this still allow me to vote on this? Just a bit of guidance from governance.
You'll get it from me. You've made it clear. I don't see any reason why the declaration should mean you couldn't do anything other than stay, speak and vote. So stay, speak and vote.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Can somebody second my amendment, do you think?
I'm just trying to do that now, Nigel.
All right.
We have a seconder.
Can I second Nigel's amendment, please?
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Can everybody hear me okay? I've not got my microphone on. I'm a bit squeaky at the best time. So I understand to speak both on the original motion and on the amendment. I understand the points you're making and the concerns that I think we all have but I don't think this motion or the wording of it, even amended, is the right way to go about it. To be fair to highways, in order to object to a proposal, as outlined in the NPPF, the impact has to be, and I quote, demonstrably severe. That's difficult to illustrate, as we've seen when highways has been used as a reason for refusal in the past, contrary to DCC advice, and even with independent highways reviews, which is something that we've been doing recently in the council, we've had significant costs awarded against this council since. So whilst I share your frustrations, I'm not aware of any local appeal decisions where an independent inspector has found there to be severe and demonstrable harm contrary to what highways has commented or asked for. But having said that, I think there are options, and as I say, I understand the concerns raised, so I think there's other things we can do. For individual applications, I think it's all of our responsibility as ward members to raise queries or concerns on behalf of residents when we aren't sure about the comments, or to highlight local events and views and ask highways to review it. I've certainly done this in my ward, most recently with Westington, but also with the Hallfield Gate Lane application that you mentioned. Secondly, highways have always provided technical engineering advice, as that's what they're statutorily bound to do. But ward members can and should, as I've just said, raise their own issues, and then it's over to the planning committee ultimately to decide. As a previous planning committee member myself, same as yourself, Councillor Hancock, and I think Councillor Barker, you'll of course be aware that the final decision always rests with the committee, and there are ways to include highways in wider infrastructure concerns and reasons, which I think we need to help and support planning committee members with more. So I think the summary here is that this motion would actually hinder a problem we're already trying to solve. Public criticism of highway officers might make us feel good, but it's not actually going to take any action or do anything. As a council and as an administration, we've already been working on this by representing residents and raising individual cases with highways, but also for my own part as cabinet member, I've had several conversations with officers on this topic over the last year. Indeed, there was work by officers earlier in the year, before COVID, I think it's February, March, to engage with highways officers and get them to come to a future planning committee meeting or some sort of workshop to have a really good discussion, discuss issues such as this and cases, and provide some advice and training. This has obviously been delayed due to COVID, but planning officers have already been working to set that back up over the last month or so there should be a date soon. Similarly, in terms of just to touch on the cumulative impact, which I think Councillor Hancock, you mentioned, again, some of that I think lies with the planning committee to recognise and refuse applications as they see fit. But with regards to the A61 in particular, which I think is where both of our concerns lie, and certainly where mine do, there's quite a significant amount of Section 106 money for highways improvements pending because of the applications which have already been approved. And highways are working on options which we as Conservatives are supporting. I think it's right to again engage with trying to solve that particular pre-existing problem in that way, in a supportive way. So I think both of these that I've just outlined are the better constructive and engaging approaches with positive action. So I'm going to continue to support that work and won't therefore be supporting this motion. With regards to the amendment in terms of referring it to a scrutiny committee, I think, as I've just said, the better way is for planning committee members, because they're ultimately the ones who make the decision, to have the talk and the discussion with highways and with highways directly. And I think that's, opening a dialogue with them is the right way to do it. So I'm afraid I can't support the amendment and I can't support the motion, but I hope you understand the reason why. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Powell.
I just think he just had his video on.
Oh,
That's why he didn't speak.
Councillor Powell, do you wish to speak?
no.
I don't think he does.
Can I speak, Chair?
Yes, Councillor Barry.
Thank you very much, Chair. I understand where Councillor Cupid's coming from, but I still feel that this is an area that needs to go to a scrutiny committee. Because we're not only talking about those people that sit on the planning committee, but the public needs to be aware of what the authorities in the highways are responsible for and how it works. And I think by doing a public scrutiny meeting and getting the highways involved in that and giving the chance of the local people to voice their opinions and not just the councillors, I think we need to be moving that forward. I know I certainly have concerns about how highways work. Fully understand that they're stuck to the regulations and what have you that the central government and everything have laid out. But they don't always come forward and make it clear the reasons as to why they've made the decisions that they've made. And if you're a person from the general public sitting in on a planning committee meeting, you wouldn't have a clue what they're talking about. So, you know, I think we do need to have a scrutiny. I think it needs to be put forward. We can invite people into those scrutiny committees. They are a public meeting to a certain extent. So I think we should be looking forward to doing that. You commented on the 106 monies and about the A61 corridor. Well, under the white paper, the 106 money will disappear. So, you know, we do need to be looking at this. And I think the suggestion of having a meeting with the officers from the highways department is an excellent idea. We did try it previously and it didn't succeed because they refused to come to the meeting. But I do feel we've got to now, I mean, especially the south of the county, we're getting clobbered with lots and lots of planning applications. We have a very, very poor infrastructure in relation to the road and the highways. And this isn't something we can hang around on anymore. We've got more and more larger developments taking place and we need to be moving forward. So I still go with the scrutiny and think we should be going forward with that motion that was put forward. And that I second, and I think that would help us move forward with the motion that Councillor Hancock's submitted earlier on. We've got to be proactive, not sit back. We've got to be out there and showing how we are fighting this and highlighting to highways how they need to be perhaps challenging some of the regulations that are being put forward as we move on through this process of house building. And especially with the fact that the white paper is going to make a mockery of a lot of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I would just say that I share some of the sentiments behind this motion. That the highways haven't done enough to put a kind of blocker in the way of that development. But I think, as Councillor Cupit highlights, there are reasons and there are protocols and regulations that they must follow. And I think it's the same token of when our own planning officers recommend approval of an application that we're not happy with. I don't think it's appropriate that we go and chastise them for that. I think we have to accept that they have a job to do, and we might not like the way that they, or the opinion that they've come to on that, but that's why it's our job as elected members to really raise awareness within our community, get people to submit views based on local knowledge, what they know of the local roads, what they know about traffic conditions and situations, etc. And I think that's our job as local members, and it's the job of our planning committee to consider those issues in the round, together with the opinions that they get from DCC highways officers. I think the idea of a scrutiny committee discussion on it isn't necessarily a bad one. However, we have to accept that scrutiny committees need to be independent of the council, and I think it's better if they can come up with their own agendas. And I know that all of our scrutiny committees are already busy with quite a few important topics that they're investigating at the minute. So I wouldn't want for this to just go away and be added to a list of a future scrutiny agenda topic, when actually, as Councillor Cupid suggested, we can deal with it now, and we can provide briefings. It doesn't have to necessarily be limited to planning committee members. We can open that up to other members to ensure that they have the opportunity to talk to highways officers, to have that dialogue and feedback some of their frustrations that I'm sure we all share. So for the same reason as Councillor Cupid, I won't be supporting the motion or the amendment, but I do think that this is an issue that we can do more on, and hope that we can do that in the coming months. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Day. Councillor Foster. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I put my hand up to speak just before Alex, our leader, spoke. So I'm afraid I'll be reiterating some of our leader's points. I was going to make the point on the amendment that scrutiny should be deciding, they should be independent and they should be deciding their own topics on what to scrutinise. And I don't believe the council should be giving instruction to them. So for me, if there is an issue like this, it gets taken by whoever, by Councillor Barker, and it gets taken direct to one of those scrutiny committees. They can look at it and they can decide on it there if they wish to choose it as a topic. For me, it's what the scrutiny committees have been used at in the past, not under this administration. They've been used to criticise other councils. Now, I know in their terms of reference, you can look and scrutinise other councils and other bodies. It can be done, but it's been done far too much in the past. So for me, I like to concentrate with the scrutiny committees, and we scrutinise things that we can change and have an active role in. We can make real changes at our own council in this administration. So I won't be supporting that amendment. And as for the motion itself, it's just one more mixed up motion from the Lib Dems, speaking about improvements, responsible planning and the rest, and it's attacking the county council. It's just one more. So I won't be supporting that either. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker would like to reply on the amendment.
I don't know what we're doing. We constitutionally, Ross has got his hand up. Do you want to help me out, Ross?
Yes, Councillor Shipman should be allowed to speak before Councillor Barker.
Am I okay to go?
Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. It does concern me that we, again, kicking the can down, talking about kicking the can down the road on another issue. I won't support the amendment purely out of principle, because I think that this is something that we need to approach the county council about now. I think if it goes to a committee, and we all know, we've all sat on committees, that it's a game of ping pong about who's going to deal with the issue, does anything actually come of it, and everything else. And I just don't think we need to be going down that route. We need to actually address this issue, and you can call it criticising. It's actually pointing out the obvious, that the information we're getting is not consistent. Councillor Foster, you're well aware that it's not consistent, given that you sit on the planning committee with me, and we have these discussions many a time in planning committee. So I think let's just do something about it. Let's pass this. Let's write to the county council. Let's get them involved in the discussion. Talk about where things can be improved, the types of information we need on the planning committee. All councillors can be involved. Instead of there's no point in just kicking this issue down the road when we know it's an issue that needs tackling now. So I think I'm going to be voting against the amendment and then for the motion as it's currently written.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, thanks. It looks like we're both going to lose anyway, Ross, so it doesn't really matter. We were trying to come with that amendment as a compromise, really. I've listened. I'm sorry, Charlotte, I couldn't really hear you very well, but I've got the message. I understand that there's certain things you can do within the council to address some of these, but from my perspective, it were about like Councillor Barry's just said, it's about making it more public and so that the community can get involved and people can see. And it's also about the communication between the two councils from the public's perspective, not particularly as councillors. I accept Councillor Foster's argument that we shouldn't be dictating to scrutiny what they look at, but it is an issue that's been ongoing for a long while. I don't accept the argument that we've criticised other councils on a regular basis. I don't know where you got that one from, Mark, but anyway, we'll let that one lie. And so I'll stick with the amendment. It's going to get voted down, and then we'll vote for the amendment, but I don't think I can vote for the original motion, because it does imply that the officers at county council are not doing the job properly, and I don't think that's a fair comment either. So let's go to vote. Do we want the amendment, and then we go back to original? Is that right, Sarah?
Yeah, sorry, yes, that's right. The motion mover, Councillor Hancock, has a right to reply immediately before the vote, so now he has a right to reply if he'd like to exercise it.
Is this is for the amendment, though? Is it? Is he? Does he wait till the next bit?
No, he has a right to reply on the amendment.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah. Chair, do I have your consent to speak?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank all members because there's elements that everybody has raised that I think I agree with to some degree. And Alex, I actually, and I know this is a rare event, I do actually agree with yourself over the fact that it's no good at going to scrutiny because it does just kick it into the long grass. So I oppose the amendment. The bit where I mean, Councillor Barker is absolutely spot on. The problem is that most of these are desktop exercises, and that's why we're getting the kind of reports that that we are getting. In terms of him saying that we are being critical of people not doing their job right, the reality is they're not adhering to the MPPF, and they have admitted both to the Planning Inspectorate and in meetings that they don't do what they should be doing. So I think it is a case of actually highlighting that fact. Going back to Councillor Cupid's points, fully respect what she's saying, and I absolutely agree with it. I don't see that this is actually something that is separate to it, and I think it can be done alongside. So I respectfully acknowledge what the Labour group is saying and their amendment. I don't agree with it. I don't support it, but I do think that we need to press on with this. In terms of again what Councillor Dale was saying about individual members and having their input, you're absolutely right. But of course, the key thing that we're told in planning, and our planning officers do a damn good job, but as they always say, they can only work on what they've got. And if we're challenging something that the experts have said differently, it won't stand up at appeal. So unless we can actually get them to change what they're saying, which is a very difficult job, I know on occasion it happens, but it's very rare, we can't challenge it and it doesn't hold up at appeal. So it is a problem. So that's my position. I don't support the amendment, but I do ask members to support the original motion.
Thank you. Can the governance manager now lead us in the vote? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So members are asked to vote for, against or abstain on the amendment put forward by Councillor Nigel Barker. I'm just going to share my screen with you now so that you can see that motion. Sorry, the amendment. So the amendment is deletion of the final part of the paragraph there, which I've crossed out, to refer this matter to a scrutiny committee to research the regulations that highways officers have to work to and how any comments from highways can be communicated clearer at planning meetings. So if members would be able to, all of them, turn on your cameras so that we can clearly see your vote for, against or abstain when requested to by the chair. So Chair, if you can just give a moment for all the members to turn on their cameras, I'll just prompt those who haven't turned on as yet. Chair, that's all members with their cameras on. Lead the vote for, against or to abstain.
Those for, please raise their hand.
And make that 25, Chair.
Those members against?
Make that 29, Chair.
There are 5 votes against in the council chamber.
Chair, the amendment falls unless there are any abstentions. Sorry, Chair.
Any abstentions?
I don't see any abstentions remotely, Chair. In which case the motion will fall. And you revert to the original motion as put to the meeting.
We need to go back to the original motion. Does anybody wish to speak on the original motion? Councillor Hancock? Councillor Hancock, like to reply?
Thank you, Chair. I think we've covered everything, so we may as well just go straight to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, now we will be moving to a vote by show of hands on the motion as submitted in the agenda by Councillor Hancock. All members have their cameras on, so you're welcome to leave the for, against, abstain vote.
All those councillors for?
That's 3 votes for, Chair.
Thank you. Those against?
At 44.
There are 5 votes against in the council chamber.
Are there any abstentions, Chair?
Any abstentions?
I can see 1 abstention remotely, Chair. So, with 44 votes against, that the motion would fall.
Say 44 there, plus us 5. Yeah, it's 49.
Nikki, can we just check, does the 44 include the 5 from the council chamber?
Apologies, no, it didn't. We can double check the numbers on the voting. I think the numbers on that may be slightly incorrect. The majority of members have voted against the motion. Sorry, Sarah.
So is that the 44 plus 5, so 49?
Could we clarify the numbers, please? Because that makes more people voting than we've got here.
That's correct, Chair. Would you like for me to rerun the voting, or are you happy to accept the majority of the meeting?
Shall we rerun it?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Apologies, members, on the counting there. Would you be kind enough to turn on all of your cameras?
Ooh. Come on, Dave, you're not going to win, are you? Let's behave.
We've got to do it properly, though.
Thank you, Chair. Would you like to lead the vote, Chair?
All those for.
Chair, I can see 3 votes for.
Those against?
$37.
Nikki, does that include the 5 from the council chamber, please?
No, that doesn't. That's remotely. Sorry. So that's 37 against plus 5. They're in the chamber.
It's 42.
Any abstentions?
1 abstention, Chair. So that's 3 votes for, 42 against, and 1 abstention. And the motion would fall on that vote.
Motion's been lost. Okay. We will now move to the next motion. Can I invite Councillor Ross Shipman to move motion B on the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. This is another planning related one. But this is just to increase the capacity of the council and its planning and enforcement area, because there's so many different developments that are going on around where the developers just pay no regard whatsoever to the conditions that are put on the developments. And you know, I can think of some in our ward particularly where the traffic management plans are just totally disregarded, and there's just issues developing from that. And then when you try and get planning to do something about it, they're stretched. The resources are thin on the ground. So this is about increasing that capacity for planning enforcement to take place. I think though, and I may be wrong, and I'm sure someone from the cabinet might be able to correct me, but I saw something on one of the cabinet papers about planning enforcement. So I didn't know if something had gone through that was about increasing the capacity of planning enforcement, or whether it was just a generic plan about what the council had plans to do. I think that went on last week, went it, between my motion going on and this council meeting. So I'll just send my motion straight to cabinet group next time. But that's me done. So pretty simple.
Is there a seconder?
Sorry, Chair, a delay in my system working. I'd like to second that one, please.
Thank you.
Just to add to what Councillor Shipman says, I mean, we are geographically a very large district. We have got a lot of building projects on there. I know for a point through the summer, I don't know whether we've actually come out of that yet, but we actually had 1 part-time person doing planning enforcement, which clearly logistically is a physical impossibility on that person. So we need to look at increasing capacity. I know our budgets are stretched, but it's an area where we have got a lot of issues, and by pure logistics on the size of the district, we need additional capacity in that area. So nothing more to add than that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head that this came to Cabinet last week. So to some extent, I think it's already sorted. I have to say that I don't think it's realistic to expect an enforcement officer on every development in this district. As much as I'd like it, I'm not sure it's achievable anywhere. Because in reality, I think enforcement is as much about deterrence and action as well as through monitoring sites. Labour members may well remember from my time in opposition, and officers certainly know over the last year, that I feel really strongly about enforcement. In reality, we inherited quite a mess here from the previous administration, where for many years this council didn't even have 1 full-time planning enforcement officer, and was essentially trying to stick a plaster on increased demand of the planning system through expensive agency support. This has taken time to fix over the last year, but we've been working on it. Both our planning system and our enforcement system have been a priority for this administration since taking control last year. And it's been at the heart of our council plan to review and invest in this area. So I can't support Councillor Shipman's comments that we only put it on when seeing the motion, because it was on a year ago and it's not that foresighted. There are 2 actions in the council plan: to develop an enforcement plan, which came last week, and to review the structure of the planning and enforcement team. These were due to be completed by March, April time, but were delayed due to COVID, and we've been working on them throughout the summer and took reports to Cabinet last week, which I'm really pleased were agreed. One of those reports, just to offer a bit of clarity, was the start of a new enforcement plan, which will set out what we expect of our enforcement system, which will come to planning committee in due course for approval in a more resident-friendly form. But it also sets out through that plan clear targets for responses and for monitoring enforcement cases. So as ward members and as residents, we know what's happening with breaches and what action is being taken. That hasn't been done in this district before, and I think it's a really positive step actually to try and monitor and keep a closer handle on some of the things. Secondly, as you've seen from the agreed cabinet papers, we've agreed a major investment in our planning service more generally, which is important to both development management but also to enforcement. It's an exempt report just for members at the moment because of the staffing implications, but the public headlines are that we're doubling the size of our enforcement team and technical support, investing in development management so officers have more resources to track developments and conditions and make sure they're enforced, and investing in expertise as well, such as arboricultural and heritage support, which will again help in enforcement cases. As I say, I can't discuss the full details. You should be able to see the report, but if you do want to discuss the sort of staffing issues that have led to that, I'm happy to have sort of discussions with you outside of this council meeting. Just as an additional point, I think your motion misses the point to some extent, because it's been clear to me over the last year that planning enforcement is quite often not just the responsibility of planning officers. It has to be a joint effort with environmental health, legal and others, which is why as an administration, one of our key priorities is enforcement just as a general thing. As well as being written in the council plan, we've also set up regular corporate enforcement officer group to make sure there's no silo working between those different sections. And I just want to thank the officers who've worked to introduce that and set it up, with particular thanks to Vicky Dawson, who leads that, and to Karen as the director, who've sort of really driven that forward. And as a result, I think we're making progress on some really complex, long-running, multi-departmental enforcement cases. So we should have some headlines there pretty soon. So whilst I'm grateful to Councillor Shipman for the opportunity to set out all these positive actions that have been taken to increase enforcement, I think this motion is probably a year too late because it's been in the council plan that long. And so I can't say that you can claim the credit, Councillor Shipman, for the efforts and the detail which is lacking from this motion that have gone into that work. But I hope you'll support it, and therefore I won't be supporting this motion because it's already done to a large extent. Thank you.
Councillor Rouse, did you wish to speak? No.
No, she's shaking her head.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Shipman, do you wish to exercise your right to reply?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's good to hear actually Councillor Cupid talk about these things that are ongoing in the background, and there seems to be some positive stuff coming through in terms of enforcement. I'm probably thinking that we might as well just pull the motion. If the work's being done, it seems to me pointless to go through with the whole voting process and everything when clearly there's some work to take that forward. So if was it David who seconded this? If David is up for it, we'll pull it and then see what the paper that's going to come through to planning says, and then we can obviously approach it at that point and see where we go from there.
Sorry, Chair, speaking over you there, there's a bit of a lag. Just to clarify with Councillor Cupid, I think she said this, but and obviously I don't want you to commit on the stuffing thing, obviously outside what you said, but you did say you are looking to increase the capacity, didn't you?
Councillor Cupid?
Yes, it's already been agreed.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to second withdrawing the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Now We'll now move on to the third motion. I invite Councillor Nigel Barker to move motion C on the agenda.
Thank you, Chair. Am I on? Yeah. I'm sure everybody's aware of this white paper that's been produced and that's been referred to in this motion, and I'm sure you've all read some of the criticism and comments that have been in the LGRU stuff that we get, and other things. I mean, I've been reading. In fact, I've been reading too much. I've got papers here, reams on them. Not all left wing, but press, by the way, you know, inside housing and all that sort of stuff. So I have sort of been reading up on it quite a bit. I think we can all agree, and I think even in all the comments that I've read, is that the planning system is far from perfect. I think we'd all accept that. And I know we keep going around with this local plan and one thing or another, but I think we've got to be careful. And I say this a lot, is that by improving things, we end up making them worse. And that seems to happen a lot, as I can see sometimes. It's all done with good intentions, but we end up going backwards. So somewhere, again, there's lots of implementing this implications into this paper, I think. I've listed some of the concerns in that motion, the 4 bullet points. The first one, I think, is about government setting housing limits, and I know it was something that we talked about in local plan meetings when we used to have them. I'm sure Councillor Armitage will back me up on that, because he used to mention it at virtually every one, where we got the 6,600 houses from. But it feels as though that's being made even stronger now. The main issue for me, mine, is the second one, and it's about these. We're losing the ability to question things at planning committees. I think that they're setting up these growth areas or renewal areas, especially the growth areas. Once a place has been designated as a growth area, then they'll have statutory outline planning permission. So that means that if somebody applies to build in that area, they get it whether or not. The result of that is the opportunity for communities to comment on individual applications in those areas are removed. And I think that's a big worry in all these publications. And in effect, the planning committee could be made obsolete. That the involvement of the local communities at planning will be overridden. The basic decisions will be made elsewhere. Regards the third point, and I accept it may relate to urban areas with shops and offices, but it could also impact on us at Eckington, Killamarsh, Dronfield, Clay Cross, where there are empty shops and offices that basically they can apply to turn them into flats and things. And there's lots of examples where they are not great. Basically, they're small bed sits that are not really fit for purpose. And the fourth point, which is probably less clear-cut, and I understand there's a claim that the fixed new levy will fund roads, schools and stuff, and discounted homes for first-time buyers, I've read. But the problem is it's not clear how this will work, and it's at the expense of doing away with SILs and 106s funding, which has been funding or been a source of funding for affordable housing around here. And my fear is, and again, I've read this in all the stuff, it's not clear how that will impact on areas like ours. As I alluded to in that last bit, is that as far as I understand, areas with lower land values will get less affordable housing because it's dependent on the value of the land that they built on. So again, it's sort of, like I've said, it's embedding regional inequalities. There's all those issues. And therefore, I'll move the motion as printed and ask the council to respond to the consultation as I've requested in that motion. Thank you. Oh, and I think, yeah, go on. Somebody else is going to second that.
Yes, is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Chair.
I'll second that.
Now, Pam, when we were going to second it?
Right, I didn't think you were coming in, sorry.
Yeah, it was a sound problem. Yeah, I'll second Councillor Barker's motion. This motion embodies the hypocrisy of the current government, which talks about devolution whilst simultaneously trying to strip local authorities of any legitimate control over development in their area. For all members, irrespective of party, planning is one of the most controversial issues we deal with. I doubt there isn't a single member in this meeting who hasn't faced issues from problematic developments in their ward, be that at planning stage or when it goes wrong, because something that everyone has cautioned against gets approval simply because the current framework says it's okay. The proposals put forward by central government are yet another example of a housing policy designed solely to address London's needs by throwing the rest of the country under the bus. Local authorities need greater empowerment. We need the authority to say exactly what type of development is required to meet the demand in our area, to help our 20-somethings get onto the housing ladder to provide quality accommodation, for our older residents to have the opportunity to downsize. The absolute last thing that North East Derbyshire needs are more homes designed to bring commuters into the area who contribute little in financial terms to the local economy and who continue to push the house prices beyond the reach of the hardworking local people. These proposals aren't acceptable to North East Derbyshire, and the Liberal Democrats are proud to support our Labour and hopefully Conservative and Independent colleagues on this motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other councillor?
Could I speak, Chair?
Oh, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of points that I want to raise, and mainly I want to put these towards the leader of the council. So if you can bear with me, I'd like to first refer the leader to point 1 of our motion, which is the proposals will give government the powers to set arbitrary housing delivery numbers for each authority. Although I agree with the local residents and the fellow councillors that the decisions made around development within our district should remain the responsibility of local people and their representatives, and not at the hands of central government, who know nothing about our area or the people that live in it. Or does he feel that keeping the local people in the dark and doing away with democracy is the right way forward? So that's my first question in relation to this motion. Some information I'd like from the leader.
Councillor Dale.
Is Councillor Barry aware that she's only able to speak once in relation to a debate? So I don't know if you had more questions than that you wanted me to answer, Barry.
Yes, I do actually. The other thing I'd like to raise again in relation to the motion is part 2 of that motion, where it says they will remove the opportunity to communities to comment on individual planning applications. And again, can the leader assure this council that he will go against the proposed white paper that central government have produced and stand with his fellow councillors and constituents in saying no to the proposals and fight to keep the planning local for local people to determine what gets built and to ensure that local democracy continues to thrive? That's my add-on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the question of keeping local people in the dark on planning was your first one. It's a very interesting one, because I think I have to say that that was Labour, North East Derbyshire Labour's policy during the last administration. They kept every community in the dark about the local plan. They didn't plan positively or engage residents about where development should take place. So I do have to take a degree of umbrage with that statement. I of course believe that local people should be involved in planning decisions. I believe in localism, and actually, if you look at what you're saying in relation to this motion, you talk about top-down housing targets. It was actually the Conservative government that abolished Labour's top-down housing targets under the regional spatial strategies prior to the MPPF being introduced. Are there issues within the white paper that concern me? Yes, but there are other aspects of the white paper that I think are positive, and I think that we have to engage constructively. I don't think that, as Councillor Cupid is going to come on and say in our group's response to this motion, I don't think that the points that this motion is making around the white paper are actually legitimate. That the white paper is an extremely high-level discussion around potential planning changes. It does not say that the government is steamrolling ahead with X, Y, Z policies. It talks about some high-level different proposals, and it's our job as a council to engage with that and make representations and feedback the views of ourselves, our planning officers, and our councillor colleagues. But I don't think that we should buy hook, line, and sinker everything that your motion suggests, because I think quite a lot of it actually is based on hearsay, not based on the actual white paper document itself. And I just think that the degree of cynicism I have for the comments around that the Labour group have made around keeping people in the dark, it's just pure hypocrisy from my perspective. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I echo Councillor Dale's comments fully, and to just sort of expand on them a little bit. I think, I welcome a discussion on the planning white paper, but I'm disappointed by that this is the way you've chosen to do it. We could have had quite a constructive discussion, but you've come forward with what is essentially a sensationalist and scaremongering motion. You've asked quite a few questions today, so can I ask one of you, Councillor Barker, have you actually read the white paper or just the sort of the commentary around it from the left-wing press? Where in the 84-page document does it mention any of these assertions? There's no mention of slum charters, unregulated development, removing commenting on individual applications, embedding regional inequalities. None of those things are mentioned, and indeed just on the first page it clearly states exactly the opposite, that they're cutting red tape but not standards, and this government doesn't just want to build houses. I think it's already been mentioned today that from the time we've spent just today in this chamber discussing planning, the planning system isn't working in our world, in our part of the world. And I think it hasn't been working for residents. You've made a political motion, and Councillor Dale has already said that it wasn't working over the Labour administration, be that the local plan, the amount of speculative development that's happened, or the proposals to build in the Green Belt over 2,000 houses, or the failure to properly use Section 106s, which I know you've touched on several times today, but that failure to use Section 106s fully has meant some developments have had to choose between education, health, or affordable housing contributions, which should never have to happen. You shouldn't have to choose, do you want a school or affordable housing? I'm totally opposed to that. The Conservative administration here at this council has spent a year trying to get us out of as many of these messes as possible. So I actually welcome the white paper in the sense that it's having a discussion on these issues and trying to change it so we can never have the perfect storm like we've currently got in this district and have had for the last decade or so. To go on to just a few of the points that you've gone through already, to dispel one of the false news stories, and given your previous unwillingness to consult on the draft local plan, I understand you wouldn't like it, but to me, placing a greater emphasis on communities and residents having more say in the local plan earlier on, which is what the aim of the white paper is, seems a positive one to me. To choose another point, again to go back to infrastructure, council's reliance on Section 106s rather than a SIL, community infrastructure levy, as the two currently available options, and that was the decision of the previous Labour administration, has left issues we've all been trying to resolve, as I've just said, and we've already discussed that today with highways. So I actually welcome that the white paper quotes the opposite of that by saying that planning obligations are broadly considered to be uncertain as opaque, as we all recognise, and that it's very difficult and uncertain to know the level of affordable housing and infrastructure that development will bring. I think we should all agree with that point in the white paper, and I welcome the chance to put forward a locally based infrastructure levy, which is certainly a thought and a proposal that I would have, to make sure we get what's currently promised, but very rarely delivered by developers in this area. So to go back to what I started on, I think the truth is the draft white paper doesn't say any of the speculative claims in this motion. It's specifically high level in terms of its proposals, things such as zoning, greater emphasis on local plans and community engagement from the very beginning and throughout. And again, I would continue to fully support that. There should be engagement throughout the planning process, and introducing design codes as well, which I think is a really positive thing, so we can have influence on the design of new developments. From that, I think the white paper is proposing headline ideas, as it's a genuine consultation. They're specifically asking people to engage with local examples of what will and won't work, and that's already been confirmed to us as a council, and well thought out responses to shape the detail. So I think if we're constructive here, this is a real chance to shape a positive planning future, rather than just attacking the white paper with loads of, sort of comments and scare stories. So I think as a Conservative administration, that's what we're going to do. We're going to be constructive about it. I'm already working with officers to draft up the council's response based on facts and local examples across the district, rather than on speculation. So I can't support this motion, but I would say as a final point that everyone can submit their own consultation responses, and I would indeed urge everyone here today to do so. Whilst the council will submit a response in full for the district, I think it's only right that ward members outline their preferences and views for each of their wards, because we all know our wards are different. So I think that's what we should do as well. So yeah, I can't support the motion, but I would urge everybody to put their own comments forward as part of the white paper, and the council will certainly be putting comments forward.
Thank you. Councillor Barker, do you wish to exercise your right to reply?
Yes, please. Has everybody else done?
Oh, Councillor Shipman, sorry. Councillor Shipman.
Sorry, yeah, it's all right. Thank you for that, Chair. I do support the motion. I mean, Councillor Cupid needs to stop kicking another can down the road, because it's all well and good saying we can also make comments and we can put our voices across. The whole point of this motion is that the council submits a voice. The voices are much more powerful if it comes from the council as an organisation than if all as individuals submit something saying we'd like something to be a certain way. The whole point is that this motion says that don't get me wrong, there is some good stuff in the white paper, but ultimately, if we are giving away some of our democracy and some of our say as a local authority, any good thing in that policy is irrelevant to that point. I mean, it's worrying to hear you saying that you support giving away the decision-making power that this authority would have. Because I mean, if you're supporting the white paper, that's what you're agreeing to. You may not think by just supporting a few simple things in it, but at the end of the day, it's going to cause problems to this district when, as a planning committee, especially trying to make decisions, and we're being bypassed on what essentially would be big developments in growth areas. Then we're pretty much in a dire position there. So I think as a local authority, we need to be submitting comments saying that we do oppose some of the things in it. And I mean, and the white paper as well tries to address the amount of houses that are being built, but the reality is that 9 out of 10 planning applications that we get are passed. So by speeding up development and fast tracking it without the local authority having a say, it's not going to bring us any more housing that we want in this local area. In fact, it'll bring more inappropriate developments in the wrong place, and some will be in your ward, and then you'll come to a planning committee and tell us about how it's a terrible development and all this other stuff. But that you'll be bypassed, so you won't ever have that opportunity to try and actually defend it. I just think that as a local authority, we need to stand up and make sure that our voices are heard. And I'm not just talking about individual councils, I'm talking about the whole organisation. So I will be supporting this motion. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper, for a point of clarification.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for Councillor Shipman that I didn't say any of the things that you just said. Indeed, I explicitly said that I completely support planning remaining as a local local community engagement throughout the process. And indeed, I remember myself saying throughout the process. So, and again, on the second point of clarification, the council will be submitting a response, but as I said in my initial speech, not on this basis. That's quite a negative response. We're going to actively engage with examples of what will work in our area and what won't. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Chair. As has been said, I think it's quite a pity that some of the good aspects in this white paper and some of the good changes that are proposed in there and can be worked on aren't going to be within the gift of the local planning authority to implement. That's going to be taken away from them, and it's not surprising to hear our Conservative side of this council supporting that, as the Tory objective from central government down is to dumb down and get rid of local authorities and local accountability, and this is another nail in that coffin. This Planning for the Future document talks about beautiful housing and beautiful communities, and if local authorities are to lose their ability to approve the details and new developments, by what means can views of local communities be taken into account when determining what's beautiful in terms of housing and communities? And how can those local communities continue to have any real force? Planning control, with this centralising of planning regulation, would effectively pass from local planning authorities, that's us, borough councils and others, to property developers, the very people who stand to gain huge profits from construction in reality, and local people won't have much to say about that. There'll be a Klondike type gold rush for large property developers at the expense of the voice of local people. I'm not surprised that the Conservative members on this council are supporting that, propping up this white paper. That's in effect what they're planning to do, and deny the rights of local people and local authorities to have say in determining what happens in their communities. I'll be supporting this motion, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Barker. Like to reply, Councillor Barker?
Yeah, sorry. There's a lot there. I've been making notes. I don't know where to start. Firstly, I have read it, the white paper. It weren't very exciting, I've got to be honest. And to be honest, for a white paper, there weren't a lot of detail there, to be honest. I didn't find. And yes, I have relied on others, supposedly housing experts or whatever, to pick the bones out of it and come up with critiques of it. And that's where I've got some of these things from. They are experts, and like I said at the beginning, they're not from any left. There are a couple of left-wing articles, I'll give that, but most of them are from inside housing and local government papers. So that's where the critiques come from. And again, I'd accept, that like I said at the beginning, it needs improving. And also, I think I alluded to it in my thing while being a bit sarcastic. If we'd have had local plan steering groups, we could easily have discussed this. That would have been a perfect vehicle where officers, the planning experts, could have brought it to us, and we, as a group, could have discussed it and come up with a council's contribution, comments towards this white paper. And I think that would have been it still could be the best place to do it. And again, I sort of half agree. Well, I always agree with Steve Pickering. It's more geared, as you'd expect, towards the big businesses, the big developers of the world to get on and do stuff, as a lot of the planning legislation has been for a long while. And it does get forgot about, and it does frustrate me when we were in control. Nobody ever mentions that the other side, all right, the council is recommending acceptance of these big developments, but there's a lot of pressure put on from the developers that if we do it wrong, they'll go to court and they'll win. They've got the money, and the big money people, that's where the problem lies with planning, not particularly at our end. It's they've got the influence, and they are influencing government at every turn, and that's a worry. And that's why we end up with rough end at stick at our end, because then we've got to argue the case against these big developers. again, I still, I'm going to hark back a little bit to beginning, and I do feel this white paper, it moves, it does link into the unitary authority stuff, because both will ultimately move any decision making further and further away from local democratic accountability. And it does seem strange to me that we've got local Conservative councillors promoting and voting for centralisation, which is taking away any decision making further away from local people and communities. And again, it does link in. I never got answer to my first question, Councillor Dale, that somewhere down the line, you've got a conflict of interest between the leader of the district council and a county council on the cabinet of a county council, where you're ultimately trying to take over and abolish the same council you sat on. And sooner or later, you're going to have to put your cards on the table on that front. And again, going back to the white paper, it's obviously going to get voted down. But if we open that local plan steering group up and actually discuss it with experts there, then I'm more than happy to take you up on that. But obviously, I'd ask you to support this resolution as it stands. Thank you.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. If I could come in on a point of clarification, I was very clear at the beginning of the meeting with Councillor Barker that our preference, as with all the other 9 councils in the county, is for Vision Derbyshire. That's what we are pushing for. But to have a head in the sand approach, given what Derby City have done, is frankly the wrong thing to do from my perspective. The county has to keep its options open, and we as a district council also have to do the same. So I think it's you're purposely misrepresenting what I'm saying and my position on this. I've been absolutely clear that we're supporting Vision Derbyshire. Vision Derbyshire is the only way that I can see that we retain our district council. And actually, the priority isn't to this district council or to county council. My priority is for the residents of this district. That's why I chose to get involved in politics and to represent local people in my area as a councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can the governance manager now lead us in the vote?
Thank you, Chair. If all members would be kind enough to turn on their cameras. Okay, Chair, all the members' cameras are on and they are voting on the motion submitted by Councillor Barker as written on the agenda.
Okay. All those for? Apologies, Chair, and technical issues my end. My screens are flicking around. I'm just going to do another count. I'm sorry, councillors, if you could keep your hands raised. On a second count, I make that 29, Chair. Against?
So apologies, Chair, from my position, I'm having a technical issue with the members' screens flicking around from different views, and I'm uncertain of whether I'm counting members at the same time. May I request, Chair, that I do this by roll call to ensure that the vote is correct? Is that permissible, Chair? Okay, my apologies, Chair. Through you, I'll just do a vote by roll call. If members could indicate clearly for, against, or abstain. Councillor Ancliffe. Apologies, Chair. I'm
abstaining.
Apologies, Chair. There's some chatter on the line. There's a member that is speaking.
I was laying on my bed like my light on really low. My head pounding the straightest face I've ever seen.
Apologies, Chair. There is a member that's speaking over the feed. Would all members be kind enough just to mute themselves?
Oh, for
Apologies, Chair. I've had to mute a number of councillors on that. Chair, through you then, running a vote by roll call. Councillor Antcliffe.
Abstaining.
Councillor Armitage. Councillor Armitage.
Against.
Councillor Barker. Councillor Barry. Councillor Barry.
For.
Councillor Birkin.
For.
Councillor Bone. Councillor Kevin Bone.
Against.
Councillor Pat Bone. Councillor Clough.
Like 2 days ago saying, well, I'm guessing you still haven't got off the curtain.
Against.
Oh yeah, I've got him. I've got
Councillor Cooper.
Otherwise you'd have one. You could have given him to Dad.
For.
Why didn't you come?
Okay, my apologies again, Chairman. There is speaking on the line. Thank you. Apologies. I got to Councillor Cooper 4, Councillor Cornwell.
Oh.
Councillor Cupid.
Again.
Councillor Dale.
Against.
Councillor Dayton.
Against.
Councillor Elliott.
Abstain.
Councillor Emmons.
Against.
Councillor Angelique Foster.
For.
Oh,
Councillor Mark
sorry,
Foster.
my apologies. Against.
No, you can't.
Councillor Mark Foster.
Can I just, I'm struggling with my sound, so my apologies.
Can I just say that we're both on the same wireless here and our bandwidth is struggling. We're both on the same internet connection. I'll let you go back to Angelique.
Sorry, Councillor Angelique Foster.
Against.
Councillor Mark Foster.
Against.
Councillor John Fennell.
For.
Councillor Gomez-Rini.
Against.
Councillor Hall.
Against.
Councillor Hancock.
For.
Councillor Hartshorn.
Like a plastic tray under it,
Yeah.
so it don't go. So,
Councillor Hill.
well, it is getting old.
I think it is that bit. I couldn't get it.
Okay, my apologies. There's obviously a technical difficulty for a member that's on the line.
obviously give it a
And
move.
all members, please try
Obviously
to
give it a
remain
new
muted.
kitchen.
Well, it is.
Thank you, my apologies. Councillor Hill.
Is that Betty, Councillor Betty Hill?
That is Councillor Betty Hill.
She's had to leave the meeting about an hour, half an hour ago.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Anne Holmes. Councillor Anne Holmes.
I think she may have left. I think she's left the meeting. Looking at it. Sorry.
Councillor Carol Huckabee.
Against.
You give me, no, not all of them. You give me that.
No, I won't.
Councillor Hunt.
For.
Councillor Hutchinson.
Against.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Kenyon.
Against.
Councillor Kerry.
For.
Councillor Lewis.
Against.
Councillor Liggett.
Abstain.
Councillor Lilly. Councillor Morley. Councillor Jerry Morley. Councillor Pickering.
For.
Councillor Powell.
Against.
Councillor Rennick.
Against.
Councillor Ridgway.
For.
Councillor Rowe.
Against.
Councillor Rouse.
For.
Councillor Ruff.
Abstain.
Councillor Shipman.
Councillor Shipman's stuck in the waiting room. His connection's dropped.
I don't have Councillor Shipman in the waiting room.
Oh, he's messaging me and he's trying to get through and can't.
Okay.
He has voted with the show of hands already, though. I don't know how you'd want to take that.
Okay, well, we'll see if the connection rejoins him in a moment. I'll keep an eye on the room. Councillor Stone.
For.
Councillor Tate.
Against.
Councillor Thacker. Councillor Welton.
Against.
Councillor Whitehead.
Against.
Councillor Windley.
For.
Councillor B. Wright.
For.
And Councillor P. Wright. Councillor P. Wright. And I believe
Mute.
Councillor P. Wright.
He's not unmuting.
Can I have his go?
Nikki, can I just ask whether you got Councillor Morley's vote? Because he was on mute and whilst he was saying for, I don't know if you heard him.
No, I don't have Councillor Morley's vote. I've got a note next to Councillor Morley and Councillor Shipman who were not present. Councillor Morley, which way would you like to indicate to vote? I can see you're mouthing for. Could you give me a thumbs up if that's correct? Okay, so that would make that 19. Councillor Shipman, are you on the line now? Okay, Chair. On that basis, then the vote is concluded. You have 19 votes for, 23 against, with 4 abstentions, which means the motion falls.
I was going to say I've got more abstentions than that. I've got 5 abstentions.
Yeah, those figures don't match up.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Why can't we take the vote electronically like we were doing to start with at the beginning of the meeting?
For your permission, Chair, I can issue an electronic vote.
Yes.
That's been launched, Chair. Still have a few more members to vote that are joining us remotely. Just a few final seconds left. There are no further votes coming in, so I'll end the polling at that point and share the results on your screen. Out of 39 members that voted during the poll there were 17 for, 19 against, with 3 abstentions. Chair, would you like to take a vote within the chamber?
5 abstentions. Just that's how we voted in the general. 3 abstentions and 2 against.
Yeah. 3 abstentions and 2 against.
With 3 abstentions in the chamber and 2 against, that would make it 17 for, 21 against, with 6 abstentions. Chairman, are you happy to accept those figures?
Yes.
And with 21 voting against, that would make the motion fall.
Next one is, we'll now move to the next motion, and invite Councillor Pam Windley to move motion D on the agenda. Councillor Windley.
Sorry, the motion I put in and I took down.
Thank you, Councillor Windley.
Thank you, Chair.
No urgent business, so I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.